they think it's all over. It is now. It's four.
The thing about history is that we tend to leave out the rather forgettable parts of it that cause us any inconvenience. We're not really going to get into this case by presenting examples, but it's true that it's easier for us to only remember the good things and safely tuck away the not so good memories. Such is the case with the 1966 World Cup that was hosted by England. The 66 World Cup and the epic final in Wembley against West Germany is heralded as English football's greatest moment to date. Indeed, the Three Lions have never won anything of similar importance in the international arena since then. And it's here that our story actually begins. While the English have mythologised the tournament as a revolutionary one, an event of many firsts, such as the first World Cup to be broadcast in colour, the first mascot in a World Cup event, termed as a feast of football, this tournament is fondly remembered in England, but if you were to ask a South American about their take, you would see that you've been provided a rather one-sided version of the events. Indeed, teams from South America failed to really make their mark. Uruguay boasted a decent squad, while Argentina were as strong as they've ever been. With Pelé leading the lines, Brazil were favourites to lift the famous Jules Rimet trophy. Sadly though, certain events happened that actually tarnished the whole experience for many South Americans who paid good money to watch their idols represent their respective countries. The way the quarter-finals were arranged was quite bizarre if you ask us. All four games kicked off simultaneously at 3 p.m. West Germany beat Uruguay 4-0, and the South Americans had two players sent off by the official, who was from England. Argentina, on the other hand, lost to hosts England, who had one player sent off by a referee who, ironically enough, was from West Germany. To this day, fans from that generation in South America claim that the European sides conspired to ensure that no South American side progressed to the final. Brazil's story in the tournament is also very controversial. Pelé was by far their best player, and perhaps the best player of the tournament, and the young striker was given quite a welcome. In the first game against Bulgaria, he was kicked so much that he was unable to play in a 3-1 defeat at the hands of Hungary in a game where the South Americans had 2 goals disallowed. In the final group game against Portugal, Pelé was a mere spectator after João Morais fouled him. Pelé did try to gather himself but was fouled even harder by the Portuguese defender. Shockingly enough, the player was not even cautioned. Interestingly, Brazil's first game was officiated by a West German and the other 2 were refereed by Englishmen. This does sound like we're onto something here. Pelé was so heartbroken after the tournament that he had a hard time rekindling his love for the game. In a tournament that was being branded around the globe as a game changer, foreign media was not even given access either. For instance, Brazil newspapers were told that they would only be allowed to have 2 photographers, while 14 Britons would get a place. But that wasn't the only thing that ticked off most Brazilians. The British ambassador to Brazil, Leslie Fry, got in touch with the Foreign Office about constant abuse the mission was receiving after the organisers asked countries to supply their own flags. Press comment this week is voluminous and uniformly abusive, he wrote. Offence has even been taken at our requesting competing countries to supply their own national flags, a skinflint exaction contrasting badly with Brazil's regular production of the flags of all teams playing here. I very much hope something can be done, and quickly, to satisfy opinion here. The British image in this country, hitherto much respected, is being sadly tarnished by this idiotic affair. Guess what happened? The request was rejected by the organising committee, citing management issues for handling too many foreign photographers and risk of not being able to craft the right flag for the participating countries. Despite doing all that, the host nation managed to mess up the Argentina and Hungary flags. The Brazilian journalists didn't feel welcomed once they arrived either. Quite famously, the Jornal do Brasil claimed that the English had failed to provide adequate services after charging so excessively. There were also reports of trains arriving late and a few games not starting on time. Trains arriving late? How very British! The press centres were not equipped adequately either, with telephones not working and telegrams arriving late on the other end. The Brazil national side was allocated the training facilities of Bolton's Burnden Park, but when the team arrived for training, it found out that the grass was too long and there were no goalposts. On top of that, the visiting side was told to look elsewhere for training. The Argentines weren't enjoying things either. They were allocated a ground that had no goalposts and ended up hiring a local carpenter to create makeshift goalposts, while a couple of crossbars were borrowed from Aston Villa and West Bromwich Albion. However, it wasn't just the South Americans who were unhappy at the inadequate arrangements. The Paris-based Association of Sports Writers slammed the tournament as regrettable and deplorable. legendary Swedish journalist Torstein Ehrenmark spoke about his experience of reporting a match in Goodison Park with the following statement: "This is the first report ever written by a journalist in a mouse hole. I am wedged firmly between two planks and two cigar-smoking Brazilians in yellow sombreros." Around 80 Mexican fans turned up at their country's embassy in London, appalled at the state of accommodation they were given after being hoodwinked into paying for first-class services. Some claimed to have been thrown in double rooms after they'd paid for single rooms. On the pitch, things weren't great either. A few of the European sides were understandably frustrated at officiating. When England beat France 2-0, the first goal was offside, while the build-up to the second one shouldn't have happened, since France's Jacques Simon was down injured after being taken out by Nobby Stiles. And we're not even going to talk about England's third goal in the final that may or may not have crossed the line. It was the game between England and Argentina that really encompassed the frustrations of visiting teams. Argentina captain Antonio Ratin was given his marching orders 15 minutes before half-time, but the Argentine delayed the game for around 10 minutes by refusing to leave the field. Ratin was sent off for dissent, which, to be honest, sounds questionable, given the fact that no Portuguese player was even cautioned by the referee for trying to injure Pelé in the group game against Brazil. The Argentines were not happy. In fact, Sir Alf Ramsey shouted at George Cohen to not exchange shirts with an Argentine player, calling him an animal. Roberto Ferrero lashed out at the referee, and Hermindo Onega spat in the face of FIFA Vice President Henry Cavan. The Argentines were beside themselves. A player threw a chair in the English dressing room while the host nation's team bus was attacked. Eusebio, the Portugal great, admitted that German referee Rudolf Kreitlein could only see the faults of Argentine players and turned a blind eye to the many transgressions carried out by English players. Kreitlein's life was definitely in danger after the final whistle, and the German had to be escorted out by the police. In fact, Italian newspaper Il Messaggero's headline for an article, "Scandal in London, Too Much Favouritism for the England Team," echoed the sentiments of many people around the globe. The dismissal of Ratin was definitely a colossal injustice that truly tarnished the spirit of the game. The acts on the pitch transcended literally every walk of life. Legendary Argentine boxer Horacio Acavallo pulled out of the defence of his WBA and WBC flyweight titles in England against Walter McGowan. Horacio said that he did not want to defend his titles in a country like England and asked McGowan to come to Argentina if he wants to fight him. This was a time when Italian sports journalists were the most sought after individuals. Naturally, the British Foreign Office tried finding an Italian journalist who could endorse their tournament. The British Embassy in Rome was ordered to find someone, but responded that no one in Italian football wants to publicly express a different view of the tournament, given that the global opinion of everyone is totally different to what the British perceive. While many people did congratulate England for winning the World Cup, the general opinion was the same. England had sold its soul in a bid to win a trophy that had eluded them for a long while. Many were actually sad that England's hard-earned reputation for chivalry and fairness was thrown away in the space of just a few weeks. In fact, a broken-hearted publication in Bolivia had this to say about the whole affair. Today, there are thousands of people who have always admired England who no longer admire England because accomplishments that are dirty and fabricated can inspire only contempt. They hatched a football conspiracy against Latin America. We may be animals and savages, but we would never consider what the cultured and civilised English have done. England may now be the world champions, but it is no longer the country of culture, of education, of gentlemen.